the High Court has today decried the blatant disregard of court orders by senior government officials involved in the Miguna Miguna deportation saga that has placed Kenya's executive in the middle of a legal and diplomatic crisis. But is it that the government lacks proper legal counsel, or is this latest scam another episode of open impunity by the Jubilee administration? Muremi Mwangi interrogates.
As he took charge at Sharia House on the 29th of August 2011 as principal government advisor, outgoing Attorney General Professor Githu Muigai hinted at what would later emerge as the greatest headache in his job.
Advising government on the legal questions of the day, but I cannot take responsibility for the political choices that the elected representatives of the people must make.
Fast forward to exactly 2,404 days later, and President Uhuru Kenyatta's government is locked in a bitter legal and diplomatic storm after blatantly disobeying 6 court orders in the double deportation of controversial Kenyan-born activist Miguna Miguna, with a 200,000 shillings fine separately hanging on Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet, and Immigration Permanent Secretary Gordon Kihalangwa. But is this latest scam a product of poor executive's judgment, arrogant dismissal of legal counsel, or another of the executive's impunity, of disdain for the courts and scorn at judicial authority?
Whatever is happening is a clear indication of people who are drunk with power, and I believe one of these days we must hold each individual to take responsibility for his own actions, not pretending that it is government. Now we shall zero down on individuals.
Miguna himself was given the forms to apply, and he refused totally. He showed his ID, and that could not give him warrant to come to the country. So even maybe the Honorable Matiang'i and the Inspector General of Police, their hands are also tied.
With Matiang'i Boynet Kihanango fining is not the first of senior government officials' conviction in Kenya for contempt of court. Before his death, immediate former Interior CS Joseph Olen Kaiseri remained a free man despite being found guilty for contempt of court after he ordered destruction of a ship already marked as exhibit in a drug-related case contrary to a court order. Just like Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho, who is a free man to date despite being sentenced to 3 months in jail in November 2016, after he failed to compensate a Nyayo House torture victim as ordered by court.
Before you rise up.
Even on the Matiang'i Boynet Kihalangwa verdict, High Court Judge George Odunga had a bitter confession to make.
If they can disobey and disregard the orders of this court with such impunity, I do not see how any of their juniors will execute the warrants against them or even hold them in custody if arrested by citizens.
I don't understand why they had to bring this whole huge hullabaloo of things. The man, whether you accuse him that he swore in Raila or for whatever it is that you want to accuse him of, but he has a court order.
The law must be followed to the letter, and there is no exception. Actually, what Miguna is trying to create is a big issue out of nothing. If he actually filled the forms, Kisumu would not have banned. Nobody will even be talking about Miguna. He will be walking freely in the streets of Nairobi.
A handover of Professor Muigai to incoming Attorney General Justice Paul Kihara Kariuki that was initially set for Thursday was indefinitely postponed. And as Kihara prepares to bring his wealth of experience on the bench to Sharia House, fixing the executive's frosty relations with the judiciary will no doubt be top on his in-tray. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
Let's stay with this story and let's take you back to Sophia Nuna, who is with CS Raphael Tuju. Sophia?
Good evening, Ben. Apologies for that loss in signal earlier, but let's take it back to, many would argue, this ruling today by Justice Odunga largely is in favor of of the government and the state agencies, in as far as, on one hand, they acted in the way they saw fit, and now there's not much of a punitive action?
Well, I think our judiciary is in crisis. It is sad that it took the action that government took to ignore them, and that's why they had to come up with some way. He has no powers to arrest, and in his ruling, it seems that he only discovered that today. There is a tendency by the judiciary to issue a lot of ex parte orders against government. There is an ex parte order against appointment of Judicial Service Commission members. Meanwhile, the Judicial Service Commission is going ahead with other work of employing people.
Yeah.
There are ex parte orders against new road safety rules, ex parte orders against building of certain dams,
right.
Ex parte orders against building of roads. It's nonsense.
Let me catch on something you've just said there. The word you've used, ignore, and that it has pretty much left egg on his face in as far as couldn't do much. So are you saying the state agencies were ignoring these court orders?
You know, the judiciary has authority. But even if you're a parent and you abuse your authority, a point comes when your children will refuse to accept your authority. Because authority must be mediated, must be tempered by mutual respect and by being fair in the dispensing justice.
But who decides that? Because the reason why we have the three arms of government, the judiciary is there to be able to come and settle matters. So when the executive decides that we don't feel this is sound judgment or directions, do also laymen, Wanjiko, get to decide that?
Let me give you an example. On 28th of this month, that is 2-3 days ago, seeking to be heard by Justice Odunga so that they could get the government side of the story. For example, that Miguna Miguna had refused to surrender his, to at least give his Canadian passport that he had used all the way from US through London, through Dubai, so that then it could be stamped. The judge who had given the order that he should be allowed to return had said that he could use his Canadian passport or the government of Kenya facilitate issuing him with a travel document. That process was attempted at the airport. In front of the Canadian embassy officials, he tore those forms that he was supposed to fill to enable him to come in. There were several other attempts by lawyers, by human rights people, and I think even the former Prime Minister, that he cooperates, and he simply decided to become, rude.
Bottom line,
and really, this is not about Miguna. This is about the judiciary. And if you recall, I did write a letter to the judiciary. There's something called interdependence between the different government agencies. Why should they be so quick to issue orders in favor of the petitioner, and the government goes to challenge this ex parte order to give its side of the story, and Justice Odunga would not even be ready to listen?
However,
he refused to listen to government.
With due respect, this is not the first time we've seen orders being disregarded. Then is it your statement tonight that the government, the executive, state agencies will only obey court orders they find and deem sound?
It shouldn't be like that at all.
But it is like that as we speak.
It shouldn't be like that, and we shouldn't go there. But the judiciary is inviting this upon themselves. I think for the first time, Justice Odunga realized that if he gave an order to the IG to arrest the IG, it was not going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's something called mutual respect, and there's interdependence of the different arms of government.
So they've been found in violation of Article 10, refusing to uphold the rule of law. President Kenyatta in his first term dismissed CSs who are linked to corruption. One of his CSs here has been found to have refused to uphold the rule of law. He's been found guilty. Isn't he unfit to hold public office, to be in Kenyatta's government?
The judiciary is the one on trial. Judiciary is on trial. For example, they have issued ex parte orders that government or executive cannot give their nominees to the Judicial Service Commission. and they're going ahead violating the Constitution themselves.
But that's mixing issues. In this particular instance, the CS has been found guilty of not upholding the rule of law. The judge saying he did not keep to the oath of office he took. That in itself is a harsh indictment, isn't it?
The judge himself is refusing to uphold the oath of office that he took to be just and to be fair and not to favor any side in a contest that he's supposed to arbitrate. What they're doing now, they are playing into the political arena, and that's what they did after 8th of August elections, and they almost put us into serious trouble in this country. So really, they should not talk about violation of the Constitution when they themselves are violating the Constitution by impunity. This country is not ready for a dictatorship by the executive, is not ready for a dictatorship by, say, Parliament being able to decide on their own salaries, and we will not accept a dictatorship by some activist judges.
Sounds like you're saying because they're doing wrong, you're justified to do wrong, briefly.
Well, if I'm not saying we are doing wrong, they are making it impossible for us to do right. We have attempted, the government has attempted to obey their orders, and then they make it more difficult for us to obey their orders. They are making themselves even, the judiciary are not immigration officers. They should respect the space of immigration officers. The moment they cross the line, then, there's a stalemate. And it was there today. For the first time, he discovered he cannot arrest the IG.
All right. Many thanks. Thank you so much for making time for us, CS Secretary General as well of the Jubilee Party with us tonight, Ben.
Many thanks, Sophia. Away from that developing story, the family of slain